Yeah, so this is the first monthly coding challenge that is kind of an offshoot from the coding summer school, just to keep everyone up to date and learning new things about Python and Bash scripting and Linux. Hopefully to help prepare you for your own research, and also our next school event or learning event, which is a winter school as well, so that'll help you prepare as well. So the plan for today's session is actually just to go over the memos for the Linux and Python exercises. I know there wasn't enough time to do that for the summer school because it was quite a packed schedule with the NISX courses and whatnot. So we're going to cover that today. And then we can answer any questions and just go over a few maybe common problems that we saw, and just to kind of go through as well. So hopefully it will benefit. And from next month, we'll we'll post in the first challenges actually for the monthly coding challenge, and that'll also be in Moodle. So I'll show you the link for that. We created new Moodle for that. You can use the same login details that you have used for the the coding summer school, same login details, and you should have access to it already as well. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing on my side. Okay, let me just show you what I wanted to let you know is that I'm not sure if you realized, but the most of the content for the summer school was deactivated. Now I've just activated this for today, just so you can have a see and look at content again, just familiarize yourself with it. And also just to get your marks, because the Python content has all been marked. So you can just check out your marks if you want to, but ultimately, you can have a look at what we've done today. And also for the Python content, we have some memos as well. So you can check out the memos for the exercises if you just want to have a look. And I think Krishna, you said you did put you said you put a post for the memos for the Linux exercises.
Yeah, that's right. But not the, I thought it was supposed to be in the coding thing. So I might have put it in the wrong place.
That's okay. Maybe I'll let you, do you want to take over to cover your section first?
Okay, cool. So let me share my virtual machine. Oh, when you need to stop sharing. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you should all be able to see my VM.
Yeah, see it.
All right, so in that coding thing, I don't think I have Moodle open here now. Let me quickly check. Oh, yes, I do. But let me stop sharing this. Give me 1 second. Let me share the Moodle site where I put the stuff so you guys can see it. Right, so this monthly coding challenge Moodle page under review of the coding school, whatever. There's memos for Linux exercises that I put as a discussion. If you guys click in there, you should find that you can get the memos from my Git repo. So you can either do a Git clone of this thing, or you can follow this link. And when you go there, then it'll allow you to download like a zip file of everything. But this is just not only the memo for our Linux course, it's also for all the Linux courses we've done over the years.
So you put the link in the chat.
Okay, let me put it in the chat. Right, so you can either clone that, or you guys can just go to the link and then you can download the stuff from the zip file. And as I say, you'll see the things are dated. So I think it starts from like 2019 that we have memos for all the courses we've done, even the face-to-face courses. So there'll be some small changes for some of the scripts. And when you do clone it, you should see something that looks like this. So you'll get a training folder. Inside the training folder, there'll be 2019, 2020, 2021. The one we're interested in now is the 2021, right? And then there's a summer school 2021, Linux. And in here is the scripts for the different exercises. I believe there was only 4, if I'm not mistaken. Right, so for the first exercise, I think I put it in the exercise itself also. So I'm going to just open this up. Remember, your text editor is up to you. So Nano, Vim, whatever it is. So this was your first script, right? We had to put a hello world. And then I asked you to print out this echo statement on one line. Now, what you needed to do was use the -n flag, because -n prints everything on the same line, and then it doesn't have a return. So there's no enter at the end of the statement. So when I do another echo statement, this will actually print on the same line as the first one with a space. So it's going to be, this is an echo statement and this is another echo statement, all on one line. And then the last two, if you use the -e, that allows you to actually use tab separations and new line separators, where the /t stands for tab separated and /n stands for new line. So this is what I was looking for. Some of you you were more or less in the ballpark, but in some cases you were writing multiple echo statements, and I wanted you all to do all of this in like 5 statements. So let's quickly run this and see what happens. Actually, /script1, and there. See, so it gives you the hello world. This is an echo statement. This is another with the tab separated, and this is multiple lines, but all in a single echo statement. So if there's questions on this, maybe now's the time to ask me before we move on to the next one. Any hands, any questions? I do realize for some reason you were not able to see the memos. I'm not sure why, because I did put them up on Moodle, especially after I've answered your stuff. I gave a comment on to what was wrong and I showed you where you needed to change your stuff. So I don't know what happened there that you weren't able to see it, because I saw a lot of you complaining to me that you can't see my comments.
Any thumbs up, any comments? Just everybody happy with everything so far? Put in the chat.
Okay, I see a thumbs up. I see another thumbs up. I see 2 thumbs up. What about the rest? Okay, another one.
Cool.
Okay, so fine. Let's move on to the next one, right? So I'm going to open this with Nano for the second script. So the second script, what I requested you to do is first get the person to enter their name, right? And then this read name will basically read in the input that the user puts in and store it in the variable called name. So what I decided to do to get my days in the order that I wanted it is I just made separate variables. You didn't have to do it this way. Some of you saw did it a very different way and it still worked. So here I say day is the date plus $D. So basically what this does is, %D. Those forward ticks, those funny ticks, which is next to the 1 on your keyboard, that runs that command in the terminal and then stores only the answer in the variable day. The same with MON for month and then year. So each one of those will store only the answer and put it into a variable called day, month, year. So when I print out the statement, I say, hello, $name is the variable name. Today is $day. And this, some of you were quite sharp. You'll actually determine whether it's whatever the day is. If it's like first, it must be a ST. The second must be ND. Third. I wasn't expecting that. If you just put in 2 letters, that would have also been fine. You would have still gotten all the marks. And then I put the month and the year. So if we run the script, and the whole point here was you could put any name here and it was supposed to print that name that you put in. Oh, wait, let me clear my screen and run this again. Right, so there it says hello to my name. Today is the 31 Earth. Obviously, if I did it the other way, it would have said 31st March 2022. Okay, so Is there anything on that one?
Some thumbs up or questions?
Yeah, no, I know when you see the solution, then you're usually kicking yourself, but yeah.
Thanks, Aneri. Any other thumbs up? Any or questions? Anyone else?
I think most of the people that are here, I think the majority of them got it right.
Right, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so let's quickly move on to the next one. Oops.
I think the last two more people struggled with it.
Yeah, so let's see script 3, right? So script 3 was where I asked you to generate a set of random numbers, but 100 different random numbers. Now here you have to use a loop, right? So I did 4 numbers in 1 to 100. So this is going to make the variable numbers take on the value 1, 2, 3 up to 100. But inside my for loop, I didn't use that variable at all. I didn't need to use it because I asked you for 100 random numbers. If I said echo dollar numbers here, it would have only given me the numbers 1 up to 100. And that's not what I wanted. I wanted 100 random numbers. There's actually a variable called $random, which is stored in Linux, which has random numbers that generate for you. So if you use $random, it'll give you a bunch of random numbers. And what would have happened is at the end of this done statement, it would have printed everything to the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just edit this. I'm going to comment stuff out here just to show you what happens, right? Right. So if I run the script, now you see there's 100 random numbers. Right. But now that's not what we wanted. We wanted those 100 numbers, but we wanted them to be sorted in numerical order. So what I did was at the end of that loop, when all of those numbers actually print to the screen, I sort that list in numerical order. And then I write it to a file called numbers.txt. Let's run this. And we type ls, there's a numbers.txt. If I cat this file, I should see 100 numbers, but all in order. They're numerically ordered, right? So that's how you're supposed to do that part. You could have done it a different way. It's totally fine. This is just how I did it because I already figured that loop at the end of the loop is where they print out all the numbers. So at the end of the loop is where I'm going to sort everything and write it to a new file called numbers.txt. Then I have a variable which I use to store the number of lines that are in the file.
Christian, can I just add if it's okay if people, if they don't want to type it, they can also just read, can just read that file as well into the file?
Yes, that's totally fine. So it's up to you. You decide what you want to do. Because in my case, I just wrote it to this file because later on I want to find out how many lines this file has, right? So what I did is I say lines is now then taking this file that I wrote out, I cat it to the screen, and then I count the number of lines, right? So I pipe it to word count minus L. And I put that in special tick so that that whole story, only the answer comes out. So only the lines, which is a value, is going to be stored in the variable called lines. Then we echo numbers.txt contains $lines, which is then the number that is stored in lines, and then the word lines. So it will tell me 100 lines because we have 100 numbers. Right, let's do that part first before we go on to the next. All right, so script 3. See, so numbers.txt contains 100 lines, which we know is right because the file shouldn't have more than 100 lines. Oh, and also another thing you need to remember is be very cautious here. If here I use 2 ticks instead of 1, right, the greater than sign, because remember a single greater than will write and override into numbers.txt. If I used double greater than here, the first time I run the script, I'll get 100. The second time I run the script, I'm going to get 200. The third time, 300, because it's appending each time instead of actually writing the numbers again and again. It's supposed to override anything that was there and replace it with something new. So that was one of the catches there. You had to make sure you use the right greater than sign. Right, so we already saw that the number of lines was 100. So then I make a variable called total. And in this case, I use awk, right? Awk is a tool in Linux, which you can use to print out columns of a file. but it can also be used to sum up the columns of a file. So in this case, I said sum up the first column in our file, which is numbers.txt, right? So that's the file name there. So sum up all of those numbers, and you have to use this end statement to say that when the sum is completed, print out the sum, print me out the number, which is correlates to the sum. And that's going to be stored in a variable called total. And at the end, we say the sum of the numbers is $total. So let's see. Right? So there you have it. Numbers.txt contains 100 lines, and the sum of the numbers is that big number. And if I run it again, it should be different because we're generating 100 random numbers each time. So the sum should never be the same. It might be close, but it's not the same. This was a difficult one for me. Thank you. That makes sense now. Yes. Okay. Tando, no problem. And anyone else, if you want to ask questions, now's the time. I know this was a bit of a tricky one, and it's all about putting the things in the right places. So thumbs uppers or something.
Anyone else thumbs up or any questions?
Okay, I see a few thumbs uppers.
I think the important thing is just the rereading or the creating of the file and first generating that, reading the file again. It's an important process to understand how to do that.
Yeah, because I noticed a lot of the guys, the problem they had was that they generated the file, but they generated more numbers each time. So instead of overriding the file, they were appending. So every time I ran the script, it was giving me more and more and more. And so that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted it to be 100 the whole time. Okay, everybody seems happy. I'm going to move on to the next one, which would probably have been one of the more challenging ones now. So I'm going to run this first. So I ask how many lines I want. And that is what I was expecting, right? Watch the spacing as well. I've got a certain number of spaces here before the first circle or the first O, certain number of spaces between that and the next one. So the pyramid goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And this last one actually has a space at the end here. It's not up against the screen. So let's have a look how that was done. So first we asked the person how many lines, which is fine. We then read in the number of lines. We then did this outer loop where we say the outer loop starts with the value of 1 and outer must be less than or equal to the number of lines. So if I put a number which is 5, well, let's make a smaller number. Let's say we put a number which is 3, right? Outer will be 1 and then outer will continue for every number that's less than or equal to 3. And each time when outer gets to the bottom of the for loop, it'll increment and come back to the top. That's the outer loop, right? So that's going to give us 1, 2, 3. Now this is going to print out the x's. This was supposed to print out the x's initially because this is the inner loop. The inner loop will start from outer, which is the value that you get from that loop there. So that's 1. Inner will start with 1. It will also have to be less than or equal to the number of lines. And inner must be plus plus. You must increase it by 1 each time. Now what this does is, in this case, I had x's here, right? So let's quickly put an x here and see what happens. I'm going to put the x there and I'm going to take the O out. We'll worry about that loop later. So let's just do that. This is why I asked you to do it in that process that I specified in the actual exercise. I wanted you all to give me this first. So if you notice, see, we've got 3 spaces, 2 spaces, 1 space, right? Now, if we want to make a pyramid, we're going to have 1 here. We're going to have 3 O's here and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 O's here. Right? And you can see instead of X's, what we want is we want to just have spacing at this point. But let's first carry on before we actually bring in the spaces. Let's go to the next loop. So this is the second inner loop. This is the one that's going to make those O's that we want. So for the second loop, we start from a value of 1, right? And here, the inner loop needs to be 2 times that of the outer loop, so that it's double the size, so that the spacing actually is double what outer is. So if for the first one, the spacing was 3, then 2 times, if outer comes in here as 2, if outer comes in here as 1, then your spacing will be 2 blocks. If outer comes in here as 2, your spacing will be 4 blocks, and so on. And again, you only increment this by 1 each time. So let's put in an O here. Right? And I'm going to do 3 again. Now you'll notice there's my X's, which are going to be nothing more than the spaces. And just after the X's, I get an O. Same, 2 X's, and then I get 3 O's. 1 X, 5 O's. Now all I need to do is get rid of these X's. And the easiest way to do that is to just make it a space. Right? I make it a space. One thing that you have to also make note of is, in order to get these things printing on the same line, you have to use echo minus n, right? So that the X's and the O's both print out on the same line. And then the moment you get to the end of that statement that prints out the X's and O's, you make a blank line. So it goes to a new line. So if we run this for the first time, I'll have 3 spaces and then an O. And then I have an enter. And then I move back to the top. Then I have 2 spaces and an O. And then I enter again. And then 1 space and an O. And I enter again. And then that's how I get the shape of the pyramid. So when we run it, that's what we end up with. The spacing is all correct because we've just replaced the X's with spaces. Okay, so that was that. I'm sure if there's questions, now would be the questions. And I will just open the script again if there are any questions. Okay, and obviously you all don't need to copy this down. You just pull it from my Git repo and it'll all be in there, including the comments and stuff. So anything, thumbs up if we're good.
Everybody's happy with this, they understand it, and it's all good.
I think so too. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing so Benjamin can start doing his part.
Cool.
All right.
Let me share my screen on my side. All right, so actually, I first wanted to show you, besides the summer school, I created there's a new course now called Monthly Coding Challenge. So I'm going to put the link in the chat now, so you should be able to go to it. You can log in with your previous details of the summer school. So it's just the Zoom link, and the content for my Python exercise will be here. So you can have a look at that. So let's now go down to the Python exercises. I'm not going to cover the multiple choice questions because I think everybody did fine with that. Unless you have questions, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand. So I'm going to start with exercise 6 because it's the first script that you used. And this one is actually very similar to the last question that Krishna just did, which is using a pyramid. But in this case, I showed you how to do it in lesson 5. But I want you to do a pyramid but upside down and replace the O's with spaces. So also similar to what Krishna asked you. Important thing, just for actually all the exercises and that you've submitted, and something I found common with a lot of them was, firstly, you must have submitted your code. And it's very important to read instructions, because some cases, you might have done something that you weren't asked to do, or did something extra, or you didn't follow the instructions correctly. So please make sure you read the instructions. And most importantly, the code must run, right? So if you're giving me code that isn't running, you will be marked quite badly, because we need to be testing all the code just to see if it works and runs. Yeah, so you need to have the code to be running. So if you're using it like in the Python shell with all the dots or this little greater than signs, I can't run the code, and it needs to be in a script format, like you used to. And I know people have worked together, and which is fine, but just remember, we noticed this, if you're working together, if you make the same mistake, if you copy from somebody else, you're gonna make the same mistake of other people. So we saw that as well. But again, working together was fine. We didn't have an issue with that. Okay, so this exercise was, let me open my spider here. So I think she's running. Yeah. So this one was, developing the upside down pyramid. So similar to what Christian showed you, you're gonna need 2 for loops. I will show you an example where somebody will use 1 for loop, which is quite nice, which was a nice way to do it. So for that, the memo is there. So let me see where the memo for that is now. You go to here we go. All right, so this was quite a simple example. We have a for loop, out of for loop and into inner for loops, just like the example that Krishna had. And if you run it, this is pretty much what we're expecting, like upside down pyramid. So I'm not going to explain it further because it's actually Krishna just did it. But what I wanted to show you was a cool way to actually somebody actually did this as well, which is just using single for loop, which is quite clever, and you can pretty much get the same effect. Like it's slightly different, but I mean you can pretty much get the same thing just as using 1 for loop, and that's a cool thing with Python. There's neat tricks and ways to be able to do that. So this is, this code is on the Summer School page, so you can have a look at it. Most people did get it correct, this question. So I can't actually comment too much because I think most people did get it correct. The only thing is just like some people didn't submit the code correctly, or they had a wrong triangle, maybe the wrong shape, or it was pointing up, or was this maybe like a right angle triangle. But I think most people did get this fine. Yeah, so are there any questions or comments about this question? Everybody happy with it?
Raise a hand if you want to ask a question or put it in the chat.
Okay. No hands or questions. Everybody, I guess, was happy with this, which is good. Okay, so the next question, question 2. This is from lesson 5. It shows you how to use a while loop to check if the number is even or odd. So for this assignment, I want you to do the same thing but using a for loop. And again, it's to copy your code, and your code must set it to run. So again, I get quite a few people copy me shell code that from the interpreter, which you can't run. I need code that you can copy and paste into a file and run it. So that's the important thing, is this code must run. And I saw quite a few people didn't use a for loop, or they just didn't use one for some reason. Yeah, let's just go for the example. It is quite similar to what you've done before. Let's go to memo. So, I mean, there's various, the most important thing is just using the modular sign. So if you choose, for example, a number, it shows you, it'll print out, this is what I'm expecting, numbers going from 5 to 1. You choose, for example, 5. Then you have a for loop that ranges from that number and then until 0, and then it decrements up by -1, so it goes from 5 to 1. And the important thing is just using the modulus, right? So this will be able to let you know if it's if the number is even or odd, if it's equal to 0 or not. So obviously, if it's going to be even, it'll be 0. If it's odd, it'll be 1 or not equal to 0. Yeah, so that's also quite straightforward. I think most people did get this correct. Yeah, any questions or comments? Otherwise, can I see some thumbs up? Cool, thanks, Annika. Everyone else, everybody else is very quiet. Annika and Anne-Marie and are usually giving me thumbs up. Everyone else happy? We can move on to the next question. I think most people did get this correct, so I'm not too worried about it. Cool. All right. So the next question, this was lesson 2. So let's leave that and go to exercise 7. Has anybody gone to the monthly coding challenge yet? This new page, just try and make sure you can log in. So just make sure you can log in. I'll put it again in the chat. Just make sure you can log in there. We'll still communicate it on Slack and email. It's still quite a bit of time for the next challenge. So just make sure you can log into that. All right, so this one is exercise 7. So this was just being able to kind of understand a lot of the concepts that you were learning so far regarding for loops and calculations and built-in functions. So this is like a manual way of working on standard deviation. So now we just did a manual approach for that, and I asked you to let's replace the question marks with the correct code, right? So for example, the mean, we have the for loop. How should the for loop be added? I think I missed this, the question marks here, but we need the square difference as well. We need to add a square difference to the list, the length of the list as well, and then ultimately how do you work out the square root mean of the square difference? All right. So some comments about this question. Yeah, so this was, I think most people did get this correct, but again, your code must run. So some people still sent me some answers with from the shell. All right, so let's just copy and paste the memo for that and spider on it. Okay, so to work out the mean is quite straightforward. Just the sum and the length will give you the mean. And then for the loop, it's also quite straightforward. This is just working out the using range and then working the length of the list that you're using for the for loop. And I think most people some people struggled with this, but I mean, to work out this, to square each deviation will be the average minus the mean, or sorry, the value, each value in the list minus the mean, and just square that. And then I think the other things you had to do, okay, to add all square deviations, you just add all those values in the list, and then find the length just using the length function. So we're trying to test how well you know your built-in functions, and some basic math that to do. And I think the last two was just working out the mean, which is just this one, the sum divided by length, and then square root, just using square root to work that out. So if you run that, you should get final value should be 8.8, which I think most people did get. And yeah, so that's pretty much all. This was quite straightforward, like plug and play. I think most people did get this correct. Any questions or comments, or can I get some thumbs up? Cool. Okay, getting lots of thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right. So can move on. All right. So we're going to that one. Has anybody logged into this new course, Monthly Coding Challenge? Please let me know in the chat if you can log into it. Okay, while we're doing that, we can go to exercise 8. Okay, exercise 8. Okay, this was a calculator question. So for this assignment, you have to take the existing code and update the file my submodule. So to ask whether you want to add, subtract, divide, multiply two numbers. Again, so you had to submit only the updated code in that file and module. And again, your code must be able to run. And if error occurs, you'll get, you won't get any marks. So I saw a lot of people, for some reason, they didn't, they kind of created their own file, and they created their own, they didn't have a function. So you should have had something looking like this. I mean, just copy and paste it over here. So this is what I was expecting. So this is what was in the file, and you just had to modify the existing file. So some people only gave me the code, but the whole purpose of this exercise was to test it with the other files, because I wanted to import it and test it with other files. So if you didn't give me some function, I mean, you could have renamed it if you wanted to, but then it wouldn't work with the other files. I mean, I was expecting like the function, and then obviously the code, and then, I mean, you could have given me this as well at the end, just to test the function, that's fine. And then just be able to run it, and it should work. I think there were also some people that used a class for some reason, so that would completely change, how you would import the file and how it would be used. So you shouldn't be using classes. There's no real reason to use classes for data science applications, really. It's more for object-oriented programming. So you shouldn't really need to know how to use classes. One useful feature, which was something to check, is if you division by 0. So I didn't explicitly say that, but it would have been an important thing to test as well. Division by 0. So how does the program work? So you can enter a number, like 10 and 20. You can choose the operator, like a plus sign. And it would add the two together. So some people like ask for the options to like type out add or type out subtract, which is also fine. I didn't have any problem with that. You could have done that too. So that was all fine. There were a few interesting cases where students got to actually add. So what they had was something, I got a result like this, where the answer is 1 plus 2 gives you 12. So they just added the two together as a string, not actually numerically. So which is not correct. So make sure you are doing the correct sums. Yeah. So, and also I saw a few people are using raw input. using this method, built-in Python functional method, to read data. So this is actually deprecated, or it means it's an old version of Python using Python 2. So Python 3 just uses the input method, or the input function. You shouldn't really be using raw input because it's not used anymore. Yeah, so that's all. Yeah, that's actually all from my side. Are there any questions or comments, or can I get some thumbs up? Oh no, Neri. Okay, all right. Yes. So I saw some people. If you don't submit, I don't know. Your code is finished. So yes, you would definitely have submitted the code. Any questions or comments so far on this question, or can I move on to the next one? Can get some thumbs up maybe in the chat. Thumbs up. I'm assuming that everything looks fine, and it's a lot easier when you go to the memo where you can see how everything works, and everything looks, makes sense when you see the memo. But when you actually have to do it, it's sometimes more complex. So if you have any questions, even like how I'm coding it, maybe some comments about it, feel free to ask. I mean, this is options for you to ask. All right, so let's move on to the next question, which was, and also, has anybody logged into this course yet? Monthly coding challenge. I haven't heard anybody say they can log in the chat somewhere. Can they log into this before we move
just
on?
indicate to us in the chat at least so that we know you can get on.
Anybody in the chat? Can you log in? Okay, thanks, Tandu. Okay, cool. Zukisa, you have not. No, we can hear everyone, and everybody can hear me. So I think it's a problem on your side. Thanks, Bonke. Okay, cool. So I'm assuming that's all working fine. Thanks. All right. So okay. So now we're on to the next exercise, which is exercise 9. Okay. So this was to for lesson 7. We're doing linear regression using the Python data2 CSV to do a whole bunch of functions here. Read in the CSV, perform a linear regression, output the slope and intercept coefficients, predict what the value would be for a certain value, output the R-squared value using a manual approach, plot the XY data, and overlay the linear regression model on the line plot. So again, most people did get this correct. But what I did see is what people did for this question was they didn't read in the file, they hard-coded it as a list, for example, which is not what I wanted. One of the outcomes is to read in the CSV file. And also, I wanted to use NumPy. Some people use pandas or library called CSV. So I specifically mentioned using NumPy because that's the purpose of this lesson. So you will mark down if you use pandas or CSV or even sklearn. I saw some people use sklearn as well for this exercise. Yeah, so okay, let's see the memo for this. Okay, let's look. So it's quite a long code, but I gave you most of this code was in the file already. So this is pretty much copy and pasting certain values. All right, so what happens if you run it? So you read in the file and you should get something looking like this. When you have your data and you have your linear regression model overlaid on the XY plot. And you should get a value of like 0.69. And then this is your linear equation over here. I think this is it. Yeah, this is your linear equation over there. Okay, cool. All right. So a few notes. I saw people were using wasn't Gen from text actually. We're using load text, NP load text, something like this. We're using this one. So I did have load text. I think I had load text in the lesson, but I said I prefer to use Gen from text. Can anybody tell me why I prefer you to use Gen from text than load text or any other like basic features? Can anybody remember why Gen from text is better to use? Anybody? Anybody in the can you say in the chat if you want?
Come on, someone must have something. Even in the chat.
Anybody? If you don't know, say you don't know.
Yes, that's also an answer. I don't know.
No, you can separate delimiters using load text as well. Okay, thanks, Tando, for being honest. Using Excel to do that. Okay, so it's actually found it in the notes here. Okay, so Gen from text. Okay, so if your file is dirty, there's gaps in it, or the number of columns changes from row to row, random text where number should be, or such nasty things. You should use Gen from text. It provides more ways of dealing with data files and it's preferable to use. Right, so it works a lot like load text, but gives you much more optional arguments and control behavior. So it's just better to use. Okay, Mokadi, we can chat afterwards. What happens when you try it? Well, you you can put in the chat while I carry on. Okay, so that was the one thing. So I'm not using load text. The other thing you can do, I mean, there's a few ways to do this, but you can store the data. This will be an NumPy array, something like that, as a NumPy array. Then you can access it afterwards, or you can store the data individually, like some people did, like index X and Y. You can also store it like that, which is sometimes quicker. You don't have to separate it afterwards like that. So it's another way of doing it. Yeah, so to do polyfit, I mean, this is all pretty much what I showed you in the notes already. So most of it is copy and paste. And this is how the manual way of working at R2 value. R2 is, so that should have been fine as well for everybody to work out. So can anybody remember what R2 does? R squared value? In statistics, why do they use that? If you don't know, say you don't know. Why do you use R squared value? Anyone out there don't know, say don't know. Why do you use R squared value?
And you use it in a lot of places, guys, not just here.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Thank you, Anne-Marie. So if you go to the notes, it just tests the accuracy of your model. So there's a lot longer explanation, and I give a a bit of a equation for that there. So if your values should be between 0 and 1, then closer to 1 is more accurate and is usually for linear regression. I think you can actually only use it for linear model. Krishna, is that correct? I mean, I don't think you can actually use it for anything else. I think you have to use other techniques.
Yeah, the R squared is primarily for the linear regression.
For linear regression, yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so all of this actually gave you in the notes. So most of it was just copy and paste and just adjusting the values. So I won't go into that. And then this is the plotting of the data, which again, most of it should have just been copy and paste. I just wanted everybody to kind of understand how to put the code, together for your own application, maybe. So yeah. So does anybody have any questions? And the final answer was 0.69. So I mean, if you look at the plot, I mean, just if you have a look at it again, you can see there is some correlation. 0.69 isn't too bad. There is a trend that you can follow, and you can predict the values fairly okay. Any questions, any comments? Or can I get thumbs up? Everybody's happy with it. We can move on to the last question. Cool. All right. On to the last question then. So that is that's 10. So this was a pandas exercise where I just asked you to read in a new CSV file, print out rows, certain rows, sort the age column in ascending order, group men and women by their mean age, create a filter, show people below the age of 60 who are male and from Ghana. So I think there was the original question actually had female, so F, which was actually a mistake because there were no people, there were no female people in this group. So I should change it to male afterwards. I realized that because you were getting, there was nothing being printed out. So I just changed it to male. So though I think the first few people that did it just notified me of that mistake. So it's supposed to be male. All right, so this is also mostly just copy and paste. I think it's just really for you to understand how the code works and just implement it. So what is this now? Okay, so quite a few people also hard-coded some of the data, which is not what I wanted. I wanted you to read in. I wanted you to read in the data using the read function using pandas. So let's go get it here. All right, so there we go. So, okay, let's go through what's needed to do. So this is just reading in the pandas data file, quite straightforward. And then I wanted you to analyze the data. You didn't have to use drop. Well, there was already index there. So I mean, this would have been, extra feature. Just use drop as well. This just gives you the info. Describe, or sometimes useful because describe gives you a statistical summary of only numerical values, but sometimes, I mean, it's everything else it won't. So like gender and country, it can't give you. I mean, this is text, so it can't give you any values for that. Or even date of birth was also a string or text. So, but it's sometimes useful just to see like the other stats, like the count and uniqueness and frequency and whatnot. That's why I like to include all as well, just to get familiar with the data you're looking at. And then I'll ask you just to print out the first 10 rows, date of birth and age. And there's a few ways to do this, but this is just one way. Sort by age, for example, and then group group by. So I want to do groups of men and women by the gender based on the mean age. And then lastly, just to create a filter that shows people less than 60, genders male, and countries from Ghana. So there's a few ways you could have done this. You could have even created a filter like this first. And ultimately what this gives you is a list of true and false. Well, that's actually it gives you a series, I think, of true and false. Let me check what it gives you. If you maybe run this. Okay, age wasn't defined, it's capital H. Gender is capital J. It's capital C, so let's do a different one. So filter less than, that's a series, yeah, okay. It's a series of true and false. So all this does is it's a series, and this is just applied into the data frame. And if it's true or not, it'll extract those values from the data frame and print it out. So that's one way. You could also use lock for the lock feature as well if you wanted to, or you could have just done it this way, from the data frame. Yeah, so I think most people did get this correct as well. Can't think of any other comments I had on that. I think some people just hard coded the file, which is not what I wanted. Yeah, any questions or comments? Time is almost up. I'll briefly go over the bonus exercises. The memos I have added, so I'll go over that briefly. But any questions or comments? Everybody happy? Thumbs up. Cool. Six thumbs up. All right. So briefly, we can go over the the bonus exercises. So this was down here. So here are the memos. So if you want to have a look, you can download them as well if you want. This course, I mean, by end of today, it'll be kind of closed. So if you want this, the memos, you can download it. If you want to get the questions as well, you can get that as well. So let's just look at the bonus exercises. So I think the first one is a hailstone question. So you have to work out hailstone sequence ending at 1. So hailstone sequence results by starting with the arbitrary number. The purest number is the sequence is even, it's divided by 2. Otherwise multiplied by 3 and added 1. Correlates conjecture the sequence will always reach number 1. That is of improvement. Okay, so let's quickly have a look at the memo for that. I'll go through this quite quickly. So if you have any questions, let me know. So, all right. So this is just an implementation of a while loop, and it's checking. This is something that even odd. I'm using the modulus with 2, and just printing the working out what the number will be divided by 2. If not, then multiply by 3 and add by 1. So if you run that, you'll see how it runs. I think there's a few ways to do this. Some people actually use recursion as well, which is a fancy way, but this is the most straightforward way to kind of do this. So you can choose any number, and this is hailstone problem. So I'm gonna, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or put in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to carry on with the next one. So the next question was the nth prime number question using sieve of Aristotle's. So let me get that memo now. Okay, so that's calculating the nth prime number. So let's copy and paste that over there. So this is just, if you just follow the method of checking whether any number between 2 or 1 less number can divide it without leaving a remainder. So you can just, this is a for loop and the condition is done there. And then this is the while loop that you'll need as well. So you can get a number, maybe like 50. That'll works out, what you need to. So, okay, let's move to the next question. If you have any questions, let me know, but otherwise I'm going to move quite quickly with the bonus questions. Okay, no, where was it? Okay, so this question was approximate the value of pi using the Monte Carlo method. I think most people also got this one, so it's quite straightforward. So I think this is quite a quick way to do it. Yeah, so this one estimated 3.138. If you use a larger number of points, you'll get a better accuracy. 0.14, and the more you go, the higher you'll get, or the more accurate you'll get. There are a few other ways people did it, but this is I put that into the memo sheet as well. All right, so the last question was just playing around with NumPy as well. I think there's a typo that should be import. So this was just copy and run the following program, and then now write a program to read in its file for each day, plot the minimum, maximum, average temperature and pressure for day 1 to day 7. Try to use minimum for loops as possible. All right, so look at this one. So here we go. So this is reading the data and then creating new lists just so I can modify the data. So this will just work out your minimum, maximum, and working out the average for each of these data sets, and then to just plotting it, right? So quite a simple exercise, just a lot of coding, but this is pretty much all that you would need to do for that. Yeah, this memo is on here, and I'll actually put the memos on the multi-coding challenge course as well on Moodle, so I can have it there too. But yeah, any questions or comments? Otherwise, we are done for today. Anything else? Was this helpful? Was this useful? Did learn something? Any questions or comments?
Or was this just information overload?
Could be. Cool, thanks, Tando. Thanks, Anneli. Thanks, Annika. Yeah, no, it's nice to see everybody back from the summer school. Yeah, so cool. Thanks, everybody. So we should be putting up the challenges from next week, hopefully, and then you have like a month or so just to be able to do it. We'll see if we can get prizes for them too, but there'll be a range of exercise challenges that you can try on various levels. So you'll be notified, via email on Slack as well about that. Yeah, so anyway, thank you, and keep in touch. Good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.